So, I am stranded on this deserted island with absolutely nothing. It seems I have a chicken and a little bit of sugarcane. I immediately got to chopping down trees, and I had to get at least one seed if I wanted food to eat, because you see, food is very scarce on an island. I then used the wood I got from the tree to make a crafting table so that I could then make a boat and head over to the shipwreck. I'm not gonna lie, the loot was pretty mid, but the loot in the next shipwreck was way better, and the iron will be super useful in the future. It was getting dark, so I decided to head back to my island, and I used the loot I got from the shipwreck to make some armor. I then spent the rest of the night mining so I could at least make some sort of use of my time. In the morning, I smelted all the loot I got and even crafted some more armor. But now I was heading down to the caves because I needed spiders so that I could get wool for beds. It didn't take too long for me to find a few spiders, but I was also finding some diamonds, and at a certain point it felt like I was finding more diamonds than spiders. You see, finding these spiders was really important because without a bed throughout the challenge it would take way longer than it needed to. But there were a lot of other mobs down here and I didn't really have that much food, so I decided that it would be best if I leave. But I always come back stronger and decided to make some better armor. And not only did I make some better armor, I also made a little bit of better tools, because without good armor, good tools, in a cave, you're pretty much dead. I also started a food farm so I wouldn't have any problems with food again. I decided that wheat would be a good first food farm, and I even started to expand on it and just make it a little bit fancy so that it would look nice and I could be proud of something in my world. I worked on my wheat farm all night, even collecting dirt underground so that I could expand it so it could be even bigger, because the more dirt that I have on the farm, the more wheat that I can plant. Not only did I start a wheat farm, I also wanted to start my own little sugarcane farm. The progress on both of the farms was going absolutely amazing. I even decided to start feeding the chickens so that one day I could have my dreams of having my own chicken farm. But for that, I'm going to need a lot of dirt. I then obviously used the dirt so I could build the area for my chicken farm. I also expanded the main land area just so that, you know, things look a little nicer around here. But the chicken farm will always remain my first priority. I was a little bit scared that I was going to get hit by a drown with a trident while making this because, you know, it's nighttime, but I decided that that was an irrational fear and I would be fine. I was also a little bit worried about phantoms. That's why I keep looking at this guy. Then I almost died. I don't know why there is no phantoms, but there isn't, and I'm not going to complain about it at all. This is also the part where I kind of realized that I was really low and had absolutely no food. And I figured, why am I waiting around for my farms to grow when I'm on an island and I can get fish? It's like I just developed a brain or something. That was a joke, by the way. I actually am a very smart guy, trust me. I'm gonna cook my fish now, okay? I'm sorry for yelling at you. It had taken a while, but I finally finished up the area where the chicken farm was gonna go. I just had to put down some fences so they wouldn't escape, and then, yeah, they started breeding. But the chicken farm isn't fully sustainable yet, so I still have to rely on fish for food, unfortunately. I then was just peacefully planting my trees, and I got attacked by some phantoms. I'm really glad that I had food before this, because if I didn't, they would have surely killed me. That night, I went into the caves and searched for some more string, yet somehow, I always find diamonds instead of string. Because I was not about to be attacked by a few phantoms again, I decided to leave the cave because I had just gotten a few diamonds and figured that I would at least finish up my diamond armor. It felt really good putting on a full set of diamond armor on only day 6. I also made a diamond shovel, very important. Then it was time to go back into the caves and get some more spiders so that I could eventually get a bed. And I finally got all of the wool necessary to make a bed, and I crafted it. It felt so good to go to sleep for the first time in this world. It's now the next day, and I am now mining wood because I'm using it to put fences all around my area, specifically the chicken coop. I then led the chickens into their new home, which I'm sure they'll love very much, but I kind of realized that mining trees on my literal main island was kind of a bad idea, so I decided I was going to start making work on my own tree island. But I was going to need a lot of dirt to do this because without dirt for a tree island, the trees just won't grow. It took a little bit of work to get it done, but over time it was done, and I got all the trees in the areas where I wanted them to be planted. And as per usual on this island, we put fences around literally everything. So for the rest of this day, I pretty much just put fences all around my area, as well as some torches so that no mobs would spawn. My entire life's mission became only about placing fences, and even if you fence gates, I became dedicated to the fence. I didn't even know there was a life outside until I did some fishing. That was fun, but it only lasted for a short while. I was back to doing my fence duties. But Dad, I hate doing fences. But my father never listened to me. All he cared about was when the fence was done. Okay, I don't know what I'm yapping about, but hey, this is looking pretty nice so far, I can't lie. And this is only day 9. Imagine what this would look like on day 100. And if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to leave a like, as it really helps me out. And possibly subscribe, maybe? I then decided that I'm going to be going into a cave, because I need some obsidian so that I can get some essential things like a nether portal and an enchantment table. The necessary requirement for both those things is 14, so that's what I got. Obsidian takes so long to break. And I made sure to get a little bit of lapis before I leave this place, just so I can do some basic enchantments. And then I made my enchantment table. I don't know why I said this so loudly, but then hey, I got that basic enchantments that I was talking about. It definitely wasn't any Prof 4 on Unbreaking 3, but it was definitely something to get me started. And I was feeling pretty prepared to take on some fights, but that's for later. For now, the only fights I'm really taking on is the fish. I then continue to do some basic house household chores like planting the sugarcane, until I realized, wait, household chores? I don't even have a house. So I began building a bridge to where I was going to eventually put my new castle. I obviously used wood as the same pattern as last time for the flooring, but like always with every project I need, I'm going to need a lot of materials to build them, and for some reason never start off with enough. I then continued building the project and putting fences all around the place just so that I don't fall off. Now that the bridge kind of thing was done, I decided to head down into the cave so that I could get some tough bricks that I was going to use to build the actual castle. I thought I would use tough to build the castle because it's a block that I've never really used, and I thought it'd be interesting just to try something new. But I was also going to need a little bit of deep slate just for the roofing of the castle, and I think tough and deep slate are a really good combination. When I got back from mining all the deep slate and tough, I decided that it would be a good idea to do some chores around the island, mainly just doing stuff with crops and wheat and sugarcane and the chickens, as all those farms are going to be very important in the future. I then began taking the tough blocks and turning them into the bricks that I was going to need for the castle. But before I could start building it, I was going to have to build the outline. You see, the key to making any great structure is to build an outline first so that you know what you're doing. You don't want to go into a project blindly building whatever you want, because that just won't work out. And also because you don't know if you'll need to get more materials later on in the future. I had finished building the outline, but I decided that the pillars on all four corners could be a lot bigger. So I immediately got to destroying them and just making them one block bigger than they normally were. And I thought that that made the castle look a lot better. However, I decided that I was going to take a little break from doing the castle just to work on the farms. I was also going to need a little bit of wood so that I could build the flooring of the castle later on. It was now time to build the actual castle, and what I was doing is I'm using 3 different types of tuff, and I'm just going to be randomizing them all throughout the layers just so that it gives it more of a textured look. There's not really any right way to do this. You're really just supposed to place all the tuff blocks randomly. I'm also making sure to leave big enough gaps so that I could put windows in the future. And honestly, I was pretty happy with the design so far. It didn't look too bad. So I continued building, and I decided that I was going to work mainly on the pillars so that they would get really high. This project was really fun to build so far, and honestly, I was really enjoying building this. But normally when building something, I always run out of materials, so I had to run back down to the caves just to get a bit more stuff. It also turned out I was going to need a little bit more wood so that I could work on the flooring, which was actually the next thing I was going to do because pretty much the main outline of the castle was done. I decided I was just going to use oak wood because it's plain simple and looks nice. And for the first time in a while, I was actually proud of something I built, but I decided that the pillars of the castle could be a little bit higher just so it looks more like a castle. Now that the main outline of the castle was done, all I need to do is add in some windows and move in all my furniture. Because, you know, that's kind of the whole point of making a house, is that you can actually live in it. The first thing I decided to do is get some sand so that I could actually build the windows. Because no great house doesn't have good windows. I then immediately put those into the furnace and started cutting out some outlines for where I wanted the windows to be on the pillars. And I was pretty happy with where the placements of the windows were going to go. Although putting the windows in the area was pretty tedious because it involved me climbing up the pillars and placing holes through them. And climbing up the pillars was just such a hassle. But nevertheless, I got it done, and honestly, it didn't look too bad. That's when I took the glass and made some glass panes and began installing the windows in my castle. And you see, the reason I decided to use glass panes instead of glass is because it's really just cheaper to produce, and it means I can get a lot more windows for a lot less sand. Although it started becoming really difficult when I had to climb up the pillars with water, and it just was really messing up my placements, as the water kept pushing me and it just really wasn't working out in my favor. Although now that the windows were done, I decided that it was going to be time to add the roofs to the pillars, which I did not know this would be a big mistake. And you can see by the end of this that, yeah, that does not look right. I mean, that is absolutely hideous. Who would want that thing on the roof? Not even on the roof, it is the roof. So the next day I tore it down completely. That was not going to be a part of my castle, and I decided to go with a more classical castle look by adding spikes on the top of the pillars. And let me say, that looked a lot better. Could you imagine if I did that deep slate roof? I mean, come on, we can all agree this is better. So I decided that I was going to be doing it all along the sides of the castle as well, because, you know, once you got a good design from one area, you might as well copy and paste it to the rest, because now it's your design. This design was super simple and easy, and it was just really fun to build, because, you know, climbing all over the castle and just placing all these roofs was just really fun to do. I encourage everyone watching this video to go build themselves a nice castle in Minecraft. It'll just be a really fun challenge. And finally, by the end of the day, we were done with the castle and all we needed was the interior. So that is exactly what I began constructing on the next day. But I realized, wait a second, I only have one bed. What am I even thinking? I need 2 beds! But I can get my second bed later. For now, I was just gonna work on my storage. Organized storage is really important to me. But now, we had a pretty fully decked out house. Except I just wanted to do a little bit of lighting so that no mobs spawn around here. Because if mobs spawn in my castle, then it would no longer be just mine. But now, I went to bed that night in only one bed and decided that that was not enough! So the next day, I went down into the caves and searched for spiders so that I can get myself a second bed. Because only poor people only have one bed. Ugh, poor people. I only have 2 beds. By the way, in real life, I only have 1 bed. So if you have 1 bed in real life too, like me, you're actually fine. I don't know what I'm talking about. I then realized that I should probably stop fooling around because I almost died. That was by far the most terrifying moment in this hardcore world. So out of pure fear and instinct, I decided to leave because, you know, I don't want to die. But like an idiot, I decided to go back the next day. I was not going to give up on getting my second bed. You see, in my mind, if I don't have a second bed, I have nothing. And for some reason, this was just my lucky day. I was finding spiders left and right. Spiders were just everywhere, overflowing the caves. It was like I just couldn't get enough of them. Except I really couldn't get enough of them. There wasn't enough for me to get a second bed. I did end up finding this amethyst geode though, so that's pretty cool. But nevertheless, I found more and my life was amazing. Yes, I have enough. Let's go. I left that cave feeling pretty happy knowing that I could get a second bed. The next morning, I placed my second bed with confidence. It felt really nice to have a second bed. I was finally rich and not poor. Today was the day that I kind of realized that, you know, I need to have a spot where I can put my nether portal. So I decided that I was going to get some materials so I could build a little island area for where I was going to put the nether portal. Getting the materials is pretty easy. I can't complain. It was really just cobblestone and wood. It was now time to build the bridge. I think I'm going slightly insane, but just, I don't know. Yeah. I then placed down the nether portal because, you know, that's the whole point of this island. But I didn't want it to be directly on the edge of the bridge, so I decided to, you know, outline it a little bit. You know, give it a little outline, give it a little style. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. I went to bed that night in my second bed. It was quite relaxing. The next day, I was finishing up the island for where I was going to put the nether portal. Just putting around some fences, and I thought that it looked pretty good. Then a wandering trader spawned on my land, and he had cherry trees, which was amazing because now I could finally have a new type of wood to use. Except me being an absolute idiot, I didn't think I had any emeralds, which I did. So I decided that I was going to build a fishing dock instead of getting the actual wood I needed. I've really got to stop screaming at you guys. You don't deserve to be yelled at like that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I was just building a dock and I didn't realize I had emeralds that I could get the new wood for. Then I was looking around my chest to see if I had materials to build the dock and I realized like an idiot, I realized I had emeralds this whole time and I got the cherry tree as well as some spruce wood because that's quite exotic. I then planted the new wood type of cherry tree in the middle of my land with great honor because, you know, it's something cool. I grew it and wow, that is beautiful. I've really never seen something quite so I chopped it down. But don't worry, I'm not an evil person. I decided to plant a new one over by the chickens. So I thought they'd like it. I also planted around some grass just so that the area looks a little bit nicer. The next day I finished placing around the fences from the dock that I started, which I really should have never started, but whatever. It's really pointless because, you know, I can just get fish the normal way, but, you know, it's still there and I can't really get rid of it, so yay. I'm so glad that I have a random dock in my world that serves no purpose whatsoever. I then decided that I was going to do some farming, like gathering some wheat so I could then feed the chickens. Or should I say, so I could go on a violent rampage and kill every single chicken in the land. But the next day, I saw this one chicken sitting in my wheat field. I'm not really sure how he got there, but I realized pretty quickly that he was different from the rest of the chickens. And I decided that I was going to befriend him because, you know, I don't really have any friends in this world. And the first step I took to befriending him was putting him on a leash on a fence in my house. I named him Tom, and me and Tom were now officially best friends. Tom was now officially my best friend, and maybe even my first. I knew that me and Tom were going to enjoy the rest of our lives in this 100 days challenge. I mean, just look at Tom go. He is vibing. Then I killed an enderman. And for some reason on this day, I was starting to get prepared. I wanted to just get, like, you know, some good gear in my inventory just in case anything ever happens to Tom. That includes enchanting some of my gear just so I can have some basic enchantments. And wow, yeah, we are pretty decked out for in case anything bad happens. But I soon realized this wasn't enough. You see, I realized that just these basic enchantments weren't going to be enough to protect Tom. I was going to need something a lot better, so I decided that I was going to build a platform where I was going to hopefully spawn a zombie villager. Because I can then cure the zombie villager to become a normal villager so I can get crazy enchantments for crazy gear. And for some reason for mobs to spawn, you have to build up a certain height, and then you have to build up a certain height again so that they can then despawn. So what you do is you build one layer for the mobs to spawn and another for them to despawn. It's kind of complicated to think about it, but it's also not too complicated. I don't really know how to explain it, but you'll see when I do. But right now, I had finally just gotten a build, and I was gonna do it tomorrow, or I should say tonight, because you know it needs to be night for the mobs to spawn. But I decided that since I have so much free time on my hands, I might as well just get some materials so that I could expand the area. And that's exactly what I did. You see, the bigger the area for the mobs to spawn, the more higher of a chance for a zombie villager to come across. But for now, I'm just gonna do some fishing. So the way it works is you stand on platform 1, see if there's anything spawning, and if not, you go up to platform 2 for them to all despawn, and you come back down with a new wave of mobs and see if you get a zombie villager. That night, unfortunately, I did not get a zombie villager, but that's not going to stop me from expanding the area, so I have a higher chance of getting a zombie villager, because as previously explained, the bigger the area, the more of a chance for a zombie villager to spawn. I also realized while building this that taking this down is going to be such a pain once we get both the zombie villagers. I mean, I started using stone, that's going to be a lot harder to break than just dirt, so I decided that I'm just going to keep doing dirt, just so that we don't have too much problems. And that night I actually got really lucky and a zombie villager actually spawned. So I immediately ran down and placed it into a boat for safekeeping. I then swiftly ran over to some trees so I could get some wood so I could then cover it. Because once it becomes daytime, that zombie villager will burn, and I am not about to let that happen. Unfortunately, for the rest of the night, we did not get another zombie villager. But since I literally have no plans, I decided I was just going to stay up all the rest of the day just to wait for it to be night so I can get another zombie villager. I mean, it was kind of a waste of time, so I decided I would just get some wood. But, you know, after that, there was really nothing else I could do. Getting wood was really the only productive thing I could do while I could wait for it to become nighttime. When it was nighttime, I began the search for looking for a zombie villager. But at first, I couldn't really find anything. The only really interesting thing that happened that night was I got attacked by some phantoms. And I don't know whose genius idea it was to add phantoms into the game, because they are just so annoying. And they can even attack you underwater. I don't know how they do this. And I figured since I have to go to sleep tonight, I might as well do something productive. So I decided to work on the area where I was actually going to put the villagers. The main material for this build was really just going to be mostly cobblestone, nothing else. But in order to do that, I kind of had to remove the nether portal because it's just in the way. Breaking the nether portal was taking such a long time. It's honestly so annoying. I went to sleep that night knowing that I could have gotten a zombie villager, but I don't want to get attacked by phantoms again, so I had to go to sleep. But hey, it's the next morning, and at least I can work on the villager trading hall. And breeder, if you will. But like always, I never have enough materials, and I decided that for the roof I'm going to be using slabs just for fun, and definitely not because I don't want to actually build a roof. The flooring was going to be made out of spruce wood yet again, just like my castle. I meant to say oak wood, not spruce wood. But nighttime finally came yet again, and I was hoping I would get a zombie villager tonight, because if I didn't, I would be very sad. Unfortunately, we did not get anything that night. The next morning, I decided I was going to start getting all the sand that I would need to build the glass for the villager breeder. I honestly don't know why I always build villager breeders in trading halls made out of glass with the walls. I think it's just something that everyone does. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But alas, it became nighttime yet again. Hopefully we can get a zombie villager this time. And as I was coming down, I spotted a zombie villager. Getting in a boat this time was going to be very tricky as there were so many mobs in the area. And I decided I was going to use the creepers to blow some of them up. Killing all the mobs just so I get to the zombie villager was such a hassle. Then I found the zombie villager and decided to lead him up the staircase. Once he was at the top, I trapped him in the boat. He did almost burn, but I did save him. I can't imagine what would have happened if the zombie villager burned. Then I'd have to get a completely new one. Then the time finally came where I knew I would have to do this eventually, but I had to take down the platform where I spawned all the mobs. This was honestly taking so long that it took me an entire day. And don't forget, once I had to take down the platform, I had to also take down the giant pillar to spawn all the mobs. And then I made a huge mistake while taking down this pillar that was going to cost me a lot more time. I don't know how I managed to do that, but hey, accidents happen. By the end of the day, I finally finished up the villager breeder and trading hall. I also took advantage of the night and decided I was going to transport the zombie villagers into their new home. They were really damaging me when I was bringing them across, but it wasn't too bad. I then trapped them in a boat inside of the area. I realized later on that putting them in the same boat would be a big mistake. Remember how when I originally made the villager breeder, I had to remove the nether portal? Well, now I need a new spot to put it, and I decided to put it behind the tree farm just because. There was honestly no reason why I had to go behind the tree farm. I just knew that it had to be behind there. It couldn't go anywhere else. Honestly, I thought it looked a lot better here than it did before. But now it was time to do a little bit of farming, because I was going to have to go into the nether in order to get a brewing stand, because if I want to kill the zombie villagers back to normal, we're going to need to do some potions. I was a little bit scared to go into the nether, but I assured myself that everything would be okay. Once I got into the nether, I immediately started looking for a nether fortress. Honestly, going in this nether was really dangerous. I was bridging over lava and everything. And I can't lie to you, I did not feel one bit safe. I did find this warp forest biome though, which was going to be very useful for when I have to beat the game. I even did end up finding one of the mushrooms though that I was going to need to make the potion. Hopefully I don't mess up the potion and have to find another one of these. And finally, I found another fortress. The wither skeletons were a little bit terrifying, but I took advantage of them being tall and made a little safety area. I found the blazes, I killed them, which was honestly not too hard. I mean, I don't know what I was scared of in the past. These blazes are so weak. And I came back successfully with the ingredients I needed to brew the potions. So I made the brewing stand and very quickly got to brewing the potion, which was a potion of weakness. And I added gunpowder to it so it could be a splash potion. I then splashed the zombie villagers and gave them a golden apple so that they would return back to the normal state of being a villager. I then decided that I was probably going to have to remove them from being in the same boat, because in case if one of them transforms before the other, they'll infect the other one again. And I was not about to let that happen. Finally though, we got one of the villagers back to normal. I decided that since these are villagers now, I'm probably going to have to do iron doors, just so that no zombies break in and kill them all. But in order to breed villagers, you are going to need some beds. So I set off to try and find a new cave, because I was hoping that I'd find a mine shaft in one of these caves. And if you didn't know, mine shafts produce a lot of string blocks, or I should say cobwebs. I eventually found the underwater cave, but there was no sign of a mine shaft. All I was finding was diamonds, which I'm not complaining, until finally I found one. I immediately got to work mining all the string that I could find, because this stuff was rare on my island world. I was also at the same time trying not to die. I did eventually find one of those big areas where they have a lot of cobwebs, but they do have the poisonous spiders, so I had to be a little bit careful. But poisonous spiders are no match for me. I decided I probably had enough wool because I can make 13 whole beds, which would definitely be enough for all the villagers I was ever going to need. Once I got back to my island, I immediately crafted the beds, and shortly after placed them all around the area. Now that the villagers could breed and had beds, I decided to feed them, and they immediately started breeding. When I came back, there was a whole nother villager, and I figured this is probably a good time to start actually leveling up my villagers so I can get some decent enchantments. And what I was going to be doing is using Fletchers, because Fletchers are currently the best way of getting emeralds in the game. RIP string method. You see, all I had to do was just level up these villagers with a little bit of wood, well, sticks, and then I would level up the trades all the way to master. With the master trade, there's now a chance for them to trade tripwire hooks for emeralds. So that is exactly what I did, and I began constructing my own tripwire hook farm. I know this may look confusing, but it's all going to make sense in a minute, because you see, this tripwire hook farm is going to be the reason I get the most OP enchantments on my gear. And if you're still not understanding, it's okay. I will explain in just a second. Let me just get a few more tripwire hooks. Basically, when Fletcher villagers are at master level, there's a chance for them to take tripwire hooks for emeralds. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. All you really have to do is just level up the Fletcher, buy all of his useless trades, but you can see that it's slowly leveling up his trade. So we just have to keep doing that just for a little while, persevere a little longer, because now, as you can see, I leveled up this villager all the way to master, and he now trades tripwire hooks for emeralds. And that is why the importance of trading tripwire hooks to emeralds is so OP. But it gets even better. You see, the villagers are eventually going to run out of emeralds to trade for tripwire hooks. So what you do is you level up multiple villagers with a master level, and now you can have multiple villagers with master level that are trading tripwire hooks for emeralds. I cannot stress enough about the importance of this. So let's continue to buy trades from the villagers. The only really bad kind of part of this is to use a tripwire hook machine, because it's just kind of boring and you don't really do anything. You just kind of sit there. You're just there for like 20 minutes just holding down right click. I figured this is probably also the right time to start trying to get some of the enchantments I was gonna need for my armor. I was really just trying to get Unbreaking 3, Protection 4, and of course Mending, but also some Feather Falling 4 just for my boots, because that's kind of important. And eventually I did end up getting the Mending that I was hoping for, which was really nice. But unfortunately, I could only afford one, so you know what that means. It's back to the tripwire hook farm yet again. This is so boring. I really wish I could be doing anything else but getting tripwire hooks. But unfortunately, this is the sad reality. My only way of getting emeralds is this stupid farm. Well, I guess it's not that stupid, because it does end up making me rich and OP, but hey, it's still pretty annoying to farm. The next day, I saw this random villager in the middle of the ocean for absolutely no reason. I have no idea how he got there, but it was obvious that I had to save him. I mean, how else was he going to get back to safety? So I brought him back over to the glass, and unfortunately, I did have to break the window so that he could fit in. And I just really want to know how he got in there originally, but hey, whatever, I'm not going to question it. More trading with the villagers again. Yep, I love my job. But I was able to afford the last mending book I was going to need. All I needed was the rest of the Prop 4 books and Unbreaking. I then decided that it'd be pretty fun if I put some armor trims on my armor, just so to give myself a little bit more style. back to the usual of trading with villagers. This time I'm looking for some Prot 4, as Prot 4 is the main enchantment that's going to keep me safe and not from dying. I did eventually find it, which actually it didn't take too long. I was surprised on how quickly I got it, because normally it takes way longer. I also realized that my sugarcane farm was a great source of emeralds because I can trade the paper for some emeralds, but the sugarcane farm does take a long time to grow, so it's back to the normal method, which is the unfortunate reality of the tripwire hook farm. And since I have to suffer doing this, you're gonna have to suffer with me. Yeah, this is pretty boring. I know. Imagine doing this for like 10 minutes, like all the time. You'd be pretty bored. I know. You're bored watching this clip right now. But I won't keep you bored for too long. Let's mine some sugarcane. Yeah, this is way more exciting. Yeah, anyway, this is too much stimulation. We're going back to the tripwire hook farm. There's no escaping it, really, is there? But, you know, it'll all eventually be worth it because we are going to be getting a lot of emeralds from this. And that is great because I love emeralds. Also, just in case anyone's wondering, because I'm sure you guys are all curious and have been all asking the same question this whole time, I've been getting the bookshelves to make the lecterns from the villagers. Yep, that is how I'm doing it. I know you guys have all been very worried because, you know, like, there's no leather on this world, so how else would I get the bookshelves? Anyways, enough yapping. It's time to actually get the enchantments that I'm going to need. This time I'm trying to get on Breaking 3, which was actually not too hard and it was very cheap for the price. Cheap for the price? Okay, wait, that makes no sense. Just pretend you never heard that. I'm too lazy to cut that part out, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. I was also very close to having all the enchanting books I was gonna need to make the most OP armor in the game. But we're not quite there yet. We have to do a little bit more grinding, so it's back to the tripwire hook farm. But my hard work always pays off because now we finally got all the protection 4 books that we're gonna need to make this set of armor. All we needed now is the Feather Falling 4, as Feather Falling 4 is very important. But before we can do that, we're going to need to get some food, as I am very low on food at the current moment. And this is hardcore, and if I run out of food, I will quite literally die. But fear not, we are now going to be going back to getting the enchantments. This one actually took quite some time to get. It was almost like it was a 0% chance to get. I swear I've never had this much of a problem when trying to find an enchantment for a piece of gear. Like, out of every enchantment I've gotten in this video so far, this one was very clearly the hardest to get. And I have no idea why. But finally, we got it. It was done. We can now finally get our max enchanted gear. I am so excited. This is just one step closer to becoming the most OP we can become in this world. And finally, after days, we started enchanting the best gear in the game. And shortly after it was done, we had finally become so OP. I think it might have taken me a little longer than expected with 54 days. But nevertheless, it was a dream come true. The only thing you really need to do now is get the max enchanted tools. But I'm not too worried about that. As long as I have looting 3 on my sword, so we can eventually defeat the wither. Also, in case you can't tell when I'm doing this clip, I'm really just trying to get XP without using the mending of my armor, because I'm gonna need some XP so I can use the enchantment table to enchant my tools. But I eventually realized sooner or later that this was a really bad method of XP, but more on that later. Right now, I need to take out these iron golems on my property, as they have really been annoying me over the past months in this world. I'm talking like Minecraft terms, not real life months. But yeah, my current method of XP for leveling up my tools was just really trading with villagers, but I soon realized that this was a very bad method. It just takes so much longer than necessary. And I realized I could just easily go into the nether and begin mining some quartz, as this would be a much faster method of getting XP. And hey, I even get some quartz in return, so that is exactly what I sought out to do. And let me say, it did not disappoint. I was leveling up so much faster than I was trading with villagers. I wasn't getting any emeralds, but I was getting quartz at least. I did have a few problems with some gas, but they were no match for me. They were just kind of annoying, but it's fine. And soon enough, I was finally level 30. It honestly, took maybe 10 minutes of my time, and I finally got a good enchantment on my diamond sword. I would have to fix it up a little bit with villagers, but it's fine. Let's go back to mining some more quartz so I can get some good enchantments on my pickaxe, as I was hoping for the same luck that I got on my sword. I mean, I don't see why I would get bad luck, right? I mean, there's no reason why I should get bad luck. I mean, I've had good luck this whole video. Hopefully nothing bad happens, right? Right? Like, hopefully I don't die randomly in the nether and, like, nothing bad happens. Right? Right, guys? Right? Right? But I'm gonna have to take a little break from this video just for a huge announcement. Have you ever wanted to be a YouTuber or even a business owner? Well, look no further, because I have the solution for you from the sponsor of today's video. If you're a small business owner, content creator, or just someone who wants a clean custom website that actually looks good, yes, they actually look good, I've used the websites before, this company has you covered. They have built-in sites for real companies, and they look amazing. And the functionality of these websites is insane. They do it all. Homepages, contact forums, Instagram galleries, and even features like pricing calculators. And 99% of the other websites you'll buy from other people do not have these features. And these websites, not to mention, are very affordable and professional. So if you want a website or you want to upgrade your old one, if you're a business owner or a YouTuber, like if you need a website for merch or anything, check out Pixlr Web Solutions, as I've personally checked them out before and they are amazing website builders. So if you ever need a website for literally anything, check out the first link in my description. So thank you for sponsoring today's video, Pixlr Web Solutions. Thank you guys, love you so much. Remember, that is the first link in the description if you're interested. And back to the video. But anyways, I have a big announcement to make. Dear everyone who is watching this video, please let me know down below in the comments if you want 200 days for this, as I am more than willing to make a 200 days part for this. So if you're enjoying this video so far and you want to see 200 days, just leave a comment saying 200 days or something along those lines. Anyway, I figured that now is probably a good time to beat the game, so I headed into the nether looking for the fortress, but I was also making sure to get a few ender pearls, as I was going to need them to make the eyes of ender. I eventually stumbled across the fortress, which it really wasn't that hard to find because I had already found it previously, and I began killing the blazes. I then made it back home safe with everything I needed. I crafted the eyes of ender, and it was now time to head on over to the stronghold. I was getting kind of nervous to do this because I had never beaten the game in full diamond armor before, but I assured myself that everything would be okay. But eventually the Eye of Ender told me to go down, and that's exactly where I went. And then I found it. I decided that I was going to loot the library just a little bit, as, you know, some of the items in here are kind of rare, especially these bookshelves. So after a little bit of searching and looking around, I found the portal room, placed the eyes, and I was a little bit nervous to do this like I'd already said, but I decided that I should just go for it, so I jumped in. Ooh, I'm nervous. The first task was simple, just take down all the crystals. Then I immediately got to shooting down the dragon while I was waiting for it to perch, as there's nothing else you can really do, if you want to get damage at least. Then when it perched, I hit it with my sword. Easy damage. Then it's back to shooting, like how it was before. And then back to perching and hitting with sword. I continued this pattern a few times, until it was starting to get pretty low. And then it was dead. I had beat the game, let's go! And there was so much XP to gather up. This was going to be great for enchanting. And then I got the dragon egg. It was now time to head into the outer world, or outer end, I think? I was bridging over because I'm trying to find a ship so I can get into Elytra. This was probably the most risky thing I've done in my hardcore, as well as this ender pearl. That was dangerous, I nearly died, until eventually I found an end city ship, and I traveled over without hesitation. Not only was there one end city, but there was two end cities. I gathered up some blocks so that I could build up there, and I pillared up, and pearled over towards the ship. Once I was on, I wasted no time defeating the shulker and getting the elytra. The loot was also decent, but not too great. I was also trying to kill a few shulkers so I could get some shulker boxes for myself, as they are a great way to store items. I also took an ender chest, as I didn't want to go through the hassle of making my own, and I flew out of there with my brand new elytra. It felt really good to fly for the first time. And that was the end of the end. But now that I was back on my main island, things felt a little weird. It was like I had accomplished something, which I did. I decided to put the end egg on a diamond block because I thought it would look cool. I also wanted to give it to Tom. I also used the XP I got to enchant my bow, as I thought the enchantments were pretty terrible. I also decided that I was going to start enchanting my elytra because, you know, I don't want it to just randomly break while I'm flying. But now I figured that this was probably a good time to get some netherite armor, as it's really the only thing that I don't have. And you know, whenever you don't have something, you tend to want it. So I dug down into the nether, turned on chunk borders because, you know, netherite actually spawns more commonly on chunk borders, and began the search for netherite. However, there was this one piece of netherite that was kind of surrounded in lava, and it was really hard to get. I had to do so much parkour just to save it. And then there was also this other piece of netherite that fell into the lava, and me being the hero I am, I decided that it would be a very good idea to go save it, which I did successfully. But now that we had all the ancient debris we're going to need to make full netherite armor and tools, it doesn't mean we can quite make it. See, we're going to have to travel to go find a bastion, because we're going to need a netherite upgrader. So I found a bastion, and immediately got to looting it. I decided I was going to try sneaking in, because I had never actually looted this bastion type before. This was all a complete mystery to me. I did find this one chest, hoping that it would have an upgrader in there, but it did not. I did get a piece of ancient debris though. Then I decided I was going to sneak in from the bottom, and that was a really bad idea. As you can see, I nearly died. So I went a little bit lower down to the bottom level, and I shot the piglin brutes off of the area because they could obviously kill me. Then I pearled over to the gold, but that was kind of a bad idea because I nearly died. Then I searched the chest and I got the netherite upgrader. I'm also just now realizing this in editing. I kind of missed 2 pieces of ancient debris in there. I really just wanted to get out fast because I was kind of in a hurry and did not want to die. And I got out successfully without getting hurt. It was now time to start smelting all the ancient debris I gotten, but I also didn't have enough gold, so I had to go back into the nether to mine some. And then I crafted the netherite ingots I had always wanted. It was so satisfying finally being able to craft netherite. And then I made my diamond armor into netherite, and it was so cool. As well as my tools, because what's netherite armor without netherite tools? I went to bed that night knowing that I was way stronger than I was last time I went to bed. And I figured that since I was pretty much unkillable, it was probably time to defeat the Wither. So I headed on over to the fortress and began getting some Wither skeleton skulls. However, at this one nether fortress, I seemed to have terrible luck with Wither skeleton skulls, as I was just not getting anything. But that was not going to stop me from defeating the Wither, not one bit. Also, I found this really cool chicken. I didn't know that they had done that update yet. It was kind of interesting to see, and honestly, it was my first time ever seeing the new chicken update. But for some reason, I wasn't getting any Wither skulls from that fortress. It's probably because it was overloaded with other mobs, and the mob chunks were full. So I headed on over to another fortress, and I was getting way more Wither skeletons than I was the last one. So much more Wither skeletons that my inventory was starting to get full with bones. And then I finally got my first skull, and it didn't take too much longer before I got my second, but the same cannot be said for the third one. It took so long to get the third skull. But eventually, I had gotten it. And I knew that defeating the Wither was not going to be easy, but it was definitely going to be something that I was going to do. So I headed back into the overworld ready to defeat the Wither. And I have to be honest with you, I was a little bit nervous. But nervousness was not going to stop me from defeating my goals and getting that sweet beacon. So I started digging down in deep side level, as I was going to be using the bow and arrow method to defeat the Wither. So I placed down the soul sand and I spawned it in. I ran down my tunnel and got my bow out, but when I started shooting, it wasn't doing any damage. Things were going to be going very wrong. I realized that there was a problem with this Wither. He was going up and not following the tunnel. That means I had to go out and fight him directly, which was a bad idea, because I was getting really low, and I did not want to die. But I was clearly not prepared enough for this fight, so I decided to leave. I thought we were just going to be doing the bow method, but the Wither had other plans. So yeah, it was about time to leave. I was not going to fight the Wither face to face without any preparation. And I figured that the best way I could defeat the Wither was by brewing potions. So that's exactly what I did. I planned to make potions of regeneration and potions of strength. I figured that those two potions in a combination would definitely help me defeat the Wither face to face. Regen potions and strength potions are a great combo, as you can do more hits and take less damage. I also wanted to get a little bit of a better food source so that my regen could go faster. And I figured that the best source of protein on this island was fish. The rest of this time was pretty much just finishing up my potions. I was feeling way more prepared than I was before. This time, I was gonna get the last laugh at the Wither, and the Wither would not be defeating me. Because I mean, come on, who actually loses their hardcore world to the Wither? It was now time to head back down. The wither should be scared because now I had potions. I quickly drank them just before I got down, and the hits with the strength 2 potions were doing insane damage on the wither. This time, I was gonna win. I wasn't gonna run away anymore. I'm tired of running away. Until finally, I defeated the wither. I then gathered some of my emeralds and made some emerald blocks, and crafted the beacon. I then had to build a little island where I was going to put the beacon, as I didn't want to just put it out in the open. Obviously, I was continuing the same pattern as the rest of my bridges, and I had to make sure that the island was big enough so that the beacon would fit. I then started building the beacon while also finishing the bridge at the same time, and I placed the beacon down in its ultimate glory. I decided that haste would be the best enchantment to get. Well, not enchantment, I guess it's an effect, because you know, it's really the only one I could get at the current moment. There's not a whole lot of options when you're building a 1-layer beacon. I then decided to get some fish because, you know, I was kind of running a little bit low on food. And like classic hardcore, if you run out of food, you die. And since I had defeated 2 bosses now, I figured it was time to defeat the 3rd, which is going to be the Elder Guardian. This one I was not too scared about because, you know, the Elder Guardian is kind of weak. The only problem is I realized that when I got there, I couldn't breathe underwater, so I had to get some underwater breathing potions. The way to make an underwater breathing potion is with a puffer fish, so I got a fishing rod and immediately started fishing. It didn't actually take that long to get. I was a little bit surprised on how easy it was, and then I started brewing the potion, and just like that, we now have a water breathing potion. But I added some breadstone so the effects would last longer. Wait, did I just say breadstone? Okay, ignore that, I'm too lazy to cut that out. And now it's time to head back into the ocean monument with my water breathing potion. I don't know if you could tell, but I was trying to make that very cinematic. Did it work? I don't know, let me know in the comments. Anyway, now what I'm working on is I want to build my own private island. Because, you know, what's the point of living 100 days on an island if you don't have your own private island? So I began making the layers / outline of where I wanted to have it. I wanted it to be made out of mostly dirt for the bottom and a little bit of a sand beach at the top. Before that, we're going to need a lot of dirt. And then I finished the first layer and it looked a little bit small, so I decided I was going to add some extensions with yet again more dirt, because I planned to have a house on this island. I was going to need a lot of this, as building down to the bottom of the ocean takes a lot of resources. And then I had pretty much the main outline / structure done, so I began carving down to the bottom where I wanted it to go. I just wanted it to touch the ocean floor. It didn't have to look too good, but it just had to be there. And that's exactly what I began doing. And now I can't lie to you, it was getting kind of difficult to build this because I kept having to come up to the surface for air as I cannot breathe underwater, which I didn't realize I could just drink an underwater breathing potion, but I'll figure that out later. For now, let me just struggle. Then I found a dolphin in my boat, and then I finally realized, wait a second, I can drink an underwater breathing potion, and after that it became a lot easier. And we finally finished it. I decided to grow a tree and shape it around a little bit so it looks more like a palm tree because we don't really have access to that kind of stuff. I placed a bed and I even decided to grow some sugarcane, and I placed some flowers around the area so it looks a little bit nicer. Then it was time to start working on my cottage. I didn't want it to be too big, I really preferred it to be a little bit smaller because cottages aren't supposed to be like overly massive. Wait, massive? Okay, wait, never mind. Then I named it Crxssed Beach, as that's exactly what it was. Then since I wanted to continue with the castle theme in my world, I decided to place some spikes along the top. And that was pretty much it, except there was still one more thing I was going to add, but I'll add it later. For now, I wanted to work on a dock, but I didn't realize that I was actually going to have to tear this down later because this is 1 block too high. So for now, just watch me build this dock. Then I realized, oh yeah, I have to put it down 1 more block, which I should have done in the first place, but I didn't. And then the dock was finished. But you already know I can't forget to put the random pillars in the bottom that do absolutely nothing. I then realized I should probably put a flag on my castle, so I went down to the caves looking for spiders, which I inevitably found. And by the end of the day, I placed down the flag. Then I did some finishing up touches on the castle, and by the end of the day, my vacation island / vacation home looked really good. I then realized that, hey, I'm super bored, I should work on a random project. So that's exactly what I did. I started getting some materials to work on a giant tower that I was going to build. Because what's a good world without a giant tower? So I began constructing the island where I was going to put it. I wanted to continue with the kind of similar style that I was doing for the rest of the island / extensions. Because, you know, you don't want to make things too different. And I continued working on the extension until the next day. But now it was time to get materials because this tower was going to be very massive. Wait, massive? Massive? You know what else could be massive? Alright, bro, I really gotta wrap this up. What day is it today? What day is it today? It is Wednesday, June 4th of 2025. I think I need to drop the Let's Say Fade meme. Except I can't because it's so massive. Alright, anyway, I'm getting carried away. Let's build this tower. The flooring was going to be spruce wood because, you know, it's a wood I had never really tried out experimenting with. And it's really rare in this world, so I thought it'd be a nice treat. I'm building this main tower out of deep slate because there's no real reason. You're just going to have to believe that I'm making it out of deep slate. And I was obviously using glass panes as the windows because I wanted to have a layer of windows for every floor. And that is going to get expensive if I use regular windows, so glass panes it is. Each floor was going to be about 3 blocks high, and I was going to have one flooring in between the middle of them. So after I built one floor, I'd build another floor, but except it's 1 block high, not high, and then I would continue building up with the 3 block pattern, of course. But of course, we never have enough materials to do anything in this world, so we got to get more wood. But then, it's obviously back to pillar making. The grind truly just never stops. It was starting to get pretty tall, but it was going to become a lot taller. I was not going to be finished until this was going to be so high that I could probably die if I fell off. But in order to do that, we need more materials, specifically deep slate, because that's the main material of this build. I then turned all the deep slate into the blocks that I was going to need them in, like all the bricks and all that, and continue building the tower. It seems like building the tower is my entire life. I have no life outside of building the tower. Almost like the fences. Yeah, really funny. Yeah. I then messed up placing glass panes a lot. Yeah, there was a lot of messed up glass. Then I started gathering the materials I was going to need for the roof. I decided that blackstone would be a good fit, as I haven't really used it much. And then I began constructing the roof. I wanted this to just be a normal roof, not a castle roof, as most of the roofs in my world have been castles, and I thought just doing a normal roof would be a good switch up. The hardest part of the roof was building this interior part, because I really had to just climb around. And by the end of the day, the exterior of my tower was done. The next day, we're building the interior. So we're climbing up with ladders to get to the top floor. I wanted to have kind of like a hotel bedroom in here. And I wanted to extend the glass window so I could see my entire world. It's a great view up here. Then I placed down my bed. And I even placed around some bookshelves. But we also got to light up the place so that no mobs spawn in. And fix the ceiling. And I went to sleep that night in my tower and I thought, wow, I have truly made it in life. Now I was going to work on another floor, because what's a hotel without a hot tub? So that's exactly what we're building. And we're using soul sand, because soul sand gives like a bubbly effect. And the hot tub was done and it looks great. It's really fun. Then I saw a chicken in a tree and decided, you know what, I'm just going to leave him. I have no idea how he got in there, but you know, he's chill. It's the next day and I decided, you know what, I'm building a water slide. So I decided I was going to build a platform where I was going to put it. Then I began constructing the water slide. I was making sure to put a downward pattern because, you know, water slides do tend to go down most of the time. Until I realized it needs to be higher, so I built it even higher and continued the downward pattern. But then I realized this looks pretty terrible. Let me just add a little bit of ladders, and I decided I was gonna redo the slide. But no, this looked terrible. This was probably the worst thing I've built in this entire video. So yeah, this needs to get taken down. It was kind of a waste of time, but I mean, hey, at least I realized that I do not know how to build water slides. And taking down the platform was an absolute pain, especially the pillars, because they were underwater. I decided that instead I'm going to build another island. This island was going to be dedicated to camping because, you know, I love camping. I mean, who doesn't love camping? Comment I love camping if you love camping. I decided I was going to plant a tree because, you know, when you're camping there does tend to be trees, and a bit of flowers for color. I got some wood for the logs and placed down the fire. And there we go, now we have a camping island. I then realized when I was looking at my chest, oh wait, I have beetroot. So I decided that I'm going to be building a completely useless beetroot farm. So let's get the materials for that. And now we can start building out the area where we want to build it. I want it to be decently big because, you know, I've got so much spare time and I don't really know what to do with it. And now the beetroot farm construction began. I now began tilling the farm, or just making the dirt farmland. I also had to gather some wood so that I could put fences on the area, because, you know, we don't want any mobs getting in here. I also made sure to place down torches, and now we can start growing our first little beetroots. I also had to fill in these little gaps, as they would be really annoying if anything got through them. And now we can start growing our very first beetroot. I was using a lot of bone meal because I wanted to fill it all up. This farm was honestly not too hard to make, probably one of my more easier farms. I really just wanted to kill some time. And now I was looking down at my world and I realized, wow, I truly have come a long way. Let me know if you guys want 200 days because we could ×2 this. But yeah, I'm honestly really proud of my work so far. I can't believe I've done all this. Then I decided I wanted to do a random side quest. I wanted to see how much diamonds I can get in one full day of strip mining. So the challenge was on. We were now going to spend the entire next day of day 94 just strip mining and getting as much diamonds as possible. This is also going to get us a lot of deep slate. So I'm curious to know how this goes. It was honestly super boring doing this because, like, what am I really supposed to do besides mine? I did run into a few caves every now and then. The answer is 30. I could get 30 diamonds from a whole day of strip mining. Not too exciting, I know, but that's it. I also decided I was going to be a little bit more generous to Tom. I gave him a carpet, and I decided I was going to glowing sack his name. And then I finally finished the beetroot farm. I then decided I was going to put my original iron armor on an armor stand just for some memories. And then I saw a wandering trader, and I immediately ran to get his trades. The only really cool thing was the lily pads and the dark oak wood, and I decided to place the lily pads around my water because, you know, it just has some color and some nice decoration. I then decided, you know what, I'm super bored. Why don't I build an aquarium inside my house? So I dug out a floor in the hole and began building the aquarium. On day 97, I finished up the aquarium and put the buckets of cod inside. I then decided, you know what, I'm just going to build a random platform in the middle of the water. Because, you know, who doesn't love a good old platform in the middle of the water for absolutely no reason? I mean, I sure do know I do. And you also got to make sure to add those random imaginary pillars just so it doesn't sink, because that's how Minecraft works. It was now time to gather some creepers, because I was going to need gunpowder for my fireworks, as I want to do a fireworks celebration on day 100. So please enjoy this cool video of me killing a creeper in slow motion. Pretty cinematic and epic, I know. Ladies, I have a girlfriend, I'm kidding, I'm actually very single and lonely. Yeah. I mean, what'd you expect? I'm a Minecraft YouTuber. I do not have a girlfriend. Yeah, that was a joke. Okay. Anyway, I began building the fireworks. Well, not building, crafting. And now I wanted to build my most complicated redstone contraption in a spot where I was going to launch the fireworks out of a dispenser. I know, very complicated. And now, it was day 99, the last and final day of my hardcore world. I was gonna miss everything. Honestly, it was really sad to see everything go. I was really gonna miss being in this world, as this world really meant a lot to me. So on the last day, I launched the fireworks into the air and celebrated the day 100. But to be honest, it didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like a piece of me was being let go of. This island had a very special place in my heart, and I hope that it had a very special place in yours too, because I really hope that you did enjoy this video. I woke up the next morning, know that I had achieved greatness, and I had officially survived 100 days on a Minecraft hardcore island. Thank you for watching this video. If you want 200 days, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye. Also, if you've been wondering where I've been, I actually filmed this video. Wait, when did I film this video? Wednesday, June 4th is the day that I finished editing this video. If you want to know where I've been at a summer camp for so long. You know, I've got a job. Oh, I just said the J word, but you know, I've got a job now, so that's where I've been for the past little while, this whole summer. Yeah, this video wasn't scheduled to be uploaded till like late August. Anyway, thank you for watching. That's where I've been over the past little while. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Yeah, once I get home. So, goodbye.